My name is Bob Bickert. We're here with Lorne Lofsky, great Canadian guitar player. I've known about you for a long, long time. You used
Uh-huh.
to you used to write articles and things like that in Guitar Player magazine back in the day,
Did a
and
couple, yeah, yep.
and
Hmm.
people would write about you in Guitar Player magazine. You've played with some of the absolute luminaries, if you will, um, of
Had some
jazz.
great opportunities, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you play with Oscar Peterson, which that's that's pretty amazing in and of itself. I've talked to a few other people that work with him. You play with Chet Baker, which is a perennial favorite of mine. That that
Hmm.
blows me away. I'm reading from your website here.
Right, right.
Uh,
You must be aware of Ed Bickert. His
well,
last
that's
name is
that
very
was
similar to yours.
that was my next. Yeah, Baker is my last name, but that was my
Yeah.
next. I'm from Buffalo, New York, by the way.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, well,
No,
I worked with Chet at Sam Noto's. Do you know the trumpet player Sam Noto?
I
Amazing bebop trumpet player.
I know the name. Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah, well, Sam was from Buffalo, and then well, he went to Vegas for a while. He was on the road with big bands, and he settled in Toronto, but and then he moved back to Buffalo, and he had a couple of different clubs, both named the Renaissance, and I played
Right.
with Chet, at the Renaissance too.
So I mean, you play with Ray Brown. You've played with an amazing assortment of characters.
Quite a few people, yeah.
Yeah, and when you said Ed Bickert, we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but that's okay. Usually, I'm a little bit
That's all
more
right.
focused, but your style reminds me of him a lot. Do
Oh,
you?
he was a huge influence on my playing, without a
Yeah,
doubt.
I mean, I
Oh
it's
yeah.
so obvious because he's so smooth, and his voicings were for especially for those days. Excuse me, for those days, so advanced.
Yeah.
And he's melodic, he's pianistic, he was everything. I mean, the guy was,
Hmm.
and he played, he played a telly,
That's
and
right.
but smooth. I mean, I think smooth was just and I don't mean smooth jazz. I just mean his technique was so smooth and his
Oh yeah. I
articulation.
mean, you're right. He sounded like an orchestra. Like when I first heard him on the Pure Desmond album
Right.
when I was a teenager. Well, I guess it was 19. Well, it's 1974, so I guess yeah, I guess it was just early '74, I believe. And I heard Ed play, and I just thought, wow, this is otherworldly. And I
Well,
actually, when I was 16, I asked Ed for guitar lessons at this
uh-huh.
club in Toronto called Meat and Potatoes, which ironically was a vegetarian restaurant. But they had seriously, but they had a bunch of great jazz playing there,
Mhm.
and Ed came in with his wife Madeline, and I got to know both of them really well. I mean, I used to go over to his house, and when I started playing with him, and got to be almost like a surrogate member of his family in a
Oh,
way.
that's nice.
So I learned so much from. I played with him for about 8 or 9 years, and many times. Like I'm the only guitar player that's played that much with Ed Bickert. It's like I
Well,
went to the University of Ed Bickert, and a large part of what I do is definitely attributed to and built on amazing legacy that he's laid down for everybody.
what's interesting is there was no Ed, and then there was Ed. I'm wondering what was his influence? Where did he come from? Because there's no there's nothing be in front of him that I can point to that said this is what
Well,
influenced
I
Ed
mean,
Bickert.
he sort of talked about different people that he admired, like Jim Hall,
Oh, okay,
Tal Farlow,
that
Jimmy
makes sense.
Rainey, people like that.
Weren't they contemporaries
But
of his though? I mean, Jim Hall
well,
was
oh, Jim Hall, yeah, Jim Hall apparently said that the only person that would make him nervous if they walked into a room when he was playing was
was
Ed.
Ed, and
And they were good friends.
Jim was
They were
born
good
in
friends.
Buffalo. Jim was born in
That's
Buffalo.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. But
and
anyway, Ed also had a ridiculous perfect pitch, and Ed used to listen to big band records. And he would listen. You listen to the horn sections, you hear the voicings,
yeah,
and Ed would be able to distill the essential notes from what was going on and apply it to his guitar. And he was the only guy. He was certainly the first guy and the only guy that I've ever heard do it the way that he did it. Like they kind of broke the mold after him. You know, but
well, that's beginning. That makes sense to me because I don't know many people that actually. I don't know many players that have perfect pitch. I know people that have great relative pitch,
Yeah. Oh, I know tons of players that have perfect pitch. But
Do you
again,
really?
perfect pitch doesn't. Yeah. But there's a lot of players around in and around the Toronto area that are either with us or not with us anymore that have or had perfect pitch. Apparently, though, when you get older, it slips or it can just go away. That's
Huh.
another thing that's
Well, like I
interesting. It
said, I
can
know a
actually.
lot of people that have great relative pitch, and some people,
Yeah.
but true perfect pitch where you can hear a note and identify it. That's an A sharp, or
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Well,
that.
Ed had it in
Yeah.
spades. They used to say about Ed that he could hear paint dry.
Well, that makes sense if you think about the way he voiced everything, what you're explaining
And
to
well,
me.
also how in tune he was when he played. I
Yeah.
worked very hard to lift a lot of his voicings and actually figured out without a theory book what he was doing. I sort of cracked the code after a lot of work.
Wow.
Not like this is how you sound like Ed Bickert, because
Right,
it was
but
much deeper than
just
that.
just getting it
Yeah, but no, I mean,
conceptually.
so when I hear him play now, when I hear anything now, I say I know right away what it is.
Right.
By and large, the voicings and stuff, because I've spent a lot of time, and then I realized at some point, I don't want to sound like a poor man's Ed Bickert. At the time, though, people were starting to compare me to Ed Bickert, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, there's something wrong here.
Right.
That tune that Sammy Davis sang, I gotta be me,
Yeah. Right.
I gotta be me. But anyway,
Yeah.
it was sort of like it was like that kind of a moment at some point, and then I got really into Bill Evans, I got into Herbie Hancock, Lenny Tristano. Oh, Lenny Tristano's he played with Lee Konitz and Warren Marsh, and
Oh, okay.
they were sort of the other school that was happening during the bebop era.
Hmm.
But one was here and then one was here. And Lenny Tristano came right out of Lester Young. And Lee Konitz told a story one time that Charlie Parker told him that I really love your playing because you're the only alto player that doesn't sound like me. Everybody, everybody. You heard Bird, and of course you wanted to be Bird, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sometimes replete with the drug-induced lifestyle, but apart from that, and then Bird actually said, "Man, I love your playing. You don't sound like me." He's Lee Konitz. Lee Konitz sounded exactly like Lee Konitz. I realize that there's a certain amount of individuality that we have to all strive for, yeah, whether we get to it or not, but we have to try. So
It's
yeah.
funny that you say that because you don't sound like him, but the fluidity of your technique is reminiscent of him, to me anyway. That's what
Oh
I'm
yeah,
saying.
no, like I said, oh for sure. How could it not? Anybody that's ever heard Ed Bickert is certainly going to be
Yeah.
either directly or indirectly influenced
Right.
by that sound because it's just the concept is beautiful and yeah, like you say, the execution, the time feel, the tone he got out of his guitar, and everything. It was just it was great. So I try and that's the standard that I've tried to live up to and add to. We
I
stopped playing in the early '90s because I wasn't going far out or anything, but I was trying to push the envelope in my own playing a little bit, and then and I think which is good. I mean, it's really good to constantly evolve, and then so we were still friends and all that, but I mean, we just stopped playing
hmm
together. It wasn't like all of a sudden I don't want to play with you anymore. It was just we just sort of we were off in different directions. Simple as that.
But what's interesting? I was watching you. There's a video of you performing with Oscar. I think
Yep.
it's in Munich,
Yep.
and you're playing a pretty straight ahead bebop
Hmm.
tune, and then there's videos of you that are more current.
Hmm.
And can you talk a little bit about how your style has changed from then to the way it is now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think with any individual, as one sort of embarks on a musical journey, there's, not to sound corny, but there are different stops along the way, or there's different influences we have, different things that we hear, and we go, well, that's really interesting. I want to check that out a little bit. So what we do is we add other elements into what we can already do, and we retain some of them. Other ones we discard, and then over the years, you're playing sort of. It just sort of hopefully organically, without like forcing the issue, things naturally evolve And the other thing that one of the things that helped me do that is to listen, not, I rarely listen to guitar players. I haven't listened to guitar, I mean, sporadically, occasionally. I'll check something out online or something, but it's rare. I listen to piano players and I listen to horn players. Those two instruments have been much more influential on me
Your
than
your
the guitar.
contemporaries, if you will, the guys that
Hmm.
I interview that are roughly in the same age group, all say the same thing. They don't really listen to guitar players. They listen to horns. They listen to symphonies. They listen to listen to
Oh
piano
man, I play
players.
through. I've been playing a good next student of mine wrote out the Well-Tempered Clavier for Bach. Both books he wrote it out for guitar. I've been playing through those.
Wow. Yeah.
They open up a world, just beautiful voice leading, and give you, and there's so many hip things in there. You wouldn't believe, like Bach was so far ahead of his time. So I mean, he really was from another planet, I think. So along this journey that I'm on so far,
Hmm.
I've been exposed to different players on different instruments, hearing different sounds, hearing symphonic recordings,
Right.
hearing jazz orchestras, hearing interesting voicings, trying to figure out ways on the guitar to kind of emulate some of that. I spend a lot of time taking standard tunes and playing them in several keys, looking for a good key where I can play open string voicings a lot, because that's when the guitar can start approaching a little bit more capturing the feel of a piano.
Do you have any examples of that that you're
Yeah, well,
willing
I can.
to?
Well, no, I can. I can just. I've got my guitar here. I don't have
No,
this.
no, no. I love it. Please play. It's great.
Yeah, just no. I'll just give you an example of, like, actually this morning, and it's a little rough, but I'll show you what I'm getting at. Well, there's a beautiful song called uh, "Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most."
Okay.
An old ballad. How
Hmm.
fitting, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just messing around with this one part of the tune. The main body of the tune goes like this, like. And this, so I
Mm.
was working on this part. The melody is just, it's just an arpeggio, right? Dee
Hmm.
da dee do dee do dee. It's like, da da dee da. So I was messing around with. And so instead of playing this, or like, or whatever, something like that, I decided to try and play it the way a piano might play it, not necessarily, or
Hmm.
the way a string section might play in an orchestra. They're looking for close voicings. In other words, notes that are like almost in
Sure.
chronological order, up to, where you go, that all that standard guitar stuff. So I played. So
Mm. That's
things like,
beautiful.
and then what did I do here? So
Mm.
again, I'm messing with it, but I look for a key that will allow me to play uh, open voicings. I worked on a Bill Evans tune a little bit called My Bells that was done in the key of B.
Hmm.
Sid Jacobs did a lovely arrangement of that,
He
but
did a rather, he did one of my favorite tunes is Waltz for Debbie, and he did a nice arrangement of that as well.
yeah, it's all in that Bill Evans book. But then I
Hmm.
tried mixing up we're doing the tune in D, and it's not. Let's see if I can even remember. I'll just play like a couple bars.
Sure. Mm.
Um,
Oh, that's gorgeous.
and then
Yeah. Uh,
uh, something like that. That's a
Yeah,
little
no,
rough. I
that's
haven't done it in a
beautiful.
while, but so the idea is you do things in open keys, and you get sounds that they're not going to sound. I mean, at best they'll sound like an electric piano, and that's the sound that I go for when I try and comp. I sort of hear that sound in my head, and then when I play single note lines, I want it to sound more like a. I want it to have the immediacy of like a saxophone. You know, the stronger, like more intensity in the line, and
Sure.
then combine the two. You know.
Oh, that's great.
And then
Yeah.
try and make it sound like Chick Corea playing on the roads or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I
still
love.
working on it. Like I said, man, it's all of this shit is a work in progress.
Hey man,
But
keep going with it. Keep going with it. It's
yeah,
great.
man, just working on it. So and along with the journey is like writing. I wanted to write some tunes that were challenging to me, that were different from what I was used to doing in terms of
Right.
the Great American Songbook, plus jazz standards. Like I know a million Bill Evans tunes, and but working on a whole bunch of things, learned some stuff by Chick. So in order for me to sort of branch out, I decided I'm gonna every once in a while I go on a little binge. I'll write a few tunes, and then I
Hmm.
just stop. This recording really was a combination of me happen to write.
Let me
I
let
happen
me
to
let
write a
me
few
let me put a
tunes.
pin in this for a second. Just say that we're talking
Yeah,
about your new recording that'll be
yeah. This
out
song is new. Yeah,
April the
yeah,
2nd. It's called "The Song Is New."
yeah. Yeah, and it's on. It's available on the Modica music label, and it'll be on Bandcamp from the Modica music page. It'll be on all the, it'll be on Spotify,
Right.
Apple Music, all the standard platforms.
Tell people this is the first recording with you as a leader in 25 years.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, I mean, I've been
Yeah.
on lots of records as a sideman,
Oh, of course.
quite a few. Oh yeah, but um, like I say, I've never. Some people sometimes think to themselves, well, geez, a year's gone by. I better put out some product under my own name. I don't feel the need to do that. For me, I mean, for me, the most important thing is not. It's not even the. It's not career oriented. I mean, having a career is great, but I mean, for me, the bottom line is studying the music
Right.
and developing. That's why I got into music to begin with. I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about I got to make $1 million or anything.
There's 7 tunes on the record.
Yep.
You got a couple of standards. I know "Stablemates" on there, for example. Um,
Yeah, I revamped that one in 7 steps a bit.
yeah, so you got that. And you composed the rest of it, right? So there's 5 original
Yeah, there's
pieces.
five. Yeah, 5 out of 7 are original tunes. Yeah.
Very, very cool. And you're working primarily with the guys that you've been working with for some time.
Yeah, many many years.
You
Yeah,
want to tell us a
couple
little
of
bit
yeah,
about those guys?
absolutely. Yeah, the saxophone player's name is Kirk McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
He's originally from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Yeah,
Well,
we've been playing upwards of 40 years. The bassist Kieran Overs.
that's me
We've been
applauding.
playing together. What's that?
That's me applauding that you've been playing together for that
Oh
long. It's
yeah, yeah. And I've known Kieran for 40 years. As a matter of fact, Kieran, the first gig I ever played with Ed Bickert in 1983, Kieran was on it on bass.
oh, geez.
Kieran is also a very fine guitar player, and he was like originally a guitar player, then he switched to bass,
Mm,
and he's back playing guitar as well now. And the drummer, Barry Romberg, I've known for almost 40 years, and we've been
right.
playing an awful lot together. So I have a trio, and my usual trio most of the time when I have a trio gig is usually Kieran and Barry, and then if I get a quartet thing, I usually think about calling Kirk because, as I say in the liner notes, playing with those guys is like putting on, when you go pick up your old baseball glove and
For
it just
sure.
your hand just sort of slides right in
Yeah.
there,
Right.
and it just feels like home, or you pick up your favorite axe
Right.
and you don't have to think about it. You just start
No,
playing and everything feels
it's just
great.
where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and I wrote these tunes, and then I wasn't even planning on recording them like for keeps. We went into the studio. It's
Mm,
Modica Studios, and the gentleman that recorded it is Roberto Acapinti, as I mentioned. He engineered it and produced it. Anyway, while we were there running through these tunes as a rehearsal, like almost like a read through, because I emailed most of them to them, and said, we'll get together and we'll run through them. We'll have
Hmm.
some fun and see if they work or not. Roberto said, well, you know what? Here, I'll put on the recording machine.
Right. Wow.
Here, it happened to be a recording studio where we could get together and play. And so it wasn't like we were walking in and saying like, okay, we're doing a record today. We walked in and we're just hanging out. We played through the tunes. We talked about a couple things. We tried a couple things, and then most of the tunes, the vast majority of them were one take. We read it down. So
Hmm.
there's a certain amount of like flying by the seat of your pants on the recording.
Best way to
You know,
be. It's
yeah, I
real.
think so. Well, that's the way they used to be years ago.
Yeah.
And then he, like I said, he recorded it, listened back to a little bit. We sort of put it on the shelf. I waited a couple months. I'm thinking, I don't know. Roberto said, you should really put this out. It sounds good. I said, I was so, you're so close to it, right?
Sure.
I would hear it with different ears than anybody else.
Oh, well.
Plus, when you hear something that close to having done it, you don't have a proper perspective, right? Because you can still remember stuff that you did that you didn't like. Yeah, be too critical. So anyway, long story short, a couple months went by, COVID hit, and then Roberto sent me a Dropbox link. He said, you should really listen to this again. So he remixed it a little bit, and then because I was on the same floor, the bass and saxophone and guitar were like just a couple feet away from each other
Hmm.
too. So there was some leakage issues. Nothing that would really affect the quality of the music so much. Yeah. So anyway, so I was sitting on it, and then I listened to it again. I said, you know what? I'm hearing some stuff that's nice.
Hmm.
There's a few rough edges here and there, but again, that's part of the process, and it's one of the elements of this type of music for sure. I talked to Roberto and I said, maybe we should do something with this. So, and then, one thing led to another, and here we are, and there's a CD out, and it's also because 5 of the tunes were original. And the two jazz standards, we did Seven Steps to Heaven in 5, like a swing 5, and then we did Stablemates as a bossa, which usually doesn't get done, and we did it in 7, a nice slow, relaxed bossa. And they both hang together quite well. So between that different take on that and sort of trying to push the envelope playing odd time stuff without any kind of prefabricated, patterns that keep getting repeated, played. That's how I approach playing. I like to play standards at home in odd time signatures because it gets me out of my box. Like
Right.
everybody has licks. Everybody's got things that they do. Bill Evans had licks. Everybody has licks. Charlie
Right.
Parker had licks too. But anyway, so when I work on tunes in different keys and
Hmm.
also sometimes at the same time in different time signatures, for me it's kind of a BS filter in that the licks that I know or whatever phrases I know, they don't work out the same way, right? Yeah. So anyway, it forces me to come up with something different and sort of push widen the parameters.
Sure. Oh,
It's,
absolutely. When I was hearing you play, with the open string voicings,
yeah.
it reminds me of the pedal on a piano. I mean, I know it's not the same thing, but you're able to sustain notes in a very different
Yeah,
way.
exactly. I'm trying to get that sound. Like there's a beautiful tune of State, and I tried. The Shirley Horn did this arrangement,
Hmm.
and it's like super
Now
slow.
you need to move your
And
camera back down again.
I'm just well, no, I don't. No, I don't. It's just
There you
it's
go.
just an A. Look, it's just this A and C,
Right.
and then open strings. So it's
Yeah. With these, you've got the 9 in there. So
yeah.
the
So it's
7 and the 9.
yeah. So A C D G B, and maybe
Right.
the and it starts off, I think, the recording with this orchestra, and they're playing like it's probably in a
Yeah.
different key. But anyway, they're playing this chord, and
Uh-huh.
it sounds like it just. So I try and sort of get that sound on the guitar.
Yeah. 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 I love that.
And then like
Oh yeah.
see, I'm also trying to make sure that anything I play on top of the chord will stand out like a singer. If I do, so it's like orchestra or accompaniment.
Yeah. I'm so glad to hear you say that because articulation is not something that's talked about a lot. I talk to a lot of guitar players,
Yeah.
And when you're playing that melody note, you know, you are singing, you're playing it like a vocalist would sing it.
And because I play with like a thumb pick and fingers, for me, I'm able to get a lot more. You know, I could go like.
So are you playing, you're playing the melody line with your finger though, right?
I'm using for the melody there. I'm using my third finger,
Yeah, that's what
and
I
then I'm
thought. Yeah,
using
you're using the
yeah.
third finger, not using the thumb pick.
Yeah. But so I'm trying to. That's another thing that I try and do when I play. Again, depending on the context of the situation.
But you're
If I'm
getting a,
playing
you
like a
know,
flat out.
you
Yeah.
must take care of your nails really well because you're getting a really nice attack and a nice envelope on that note with your
Right.
nail.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I keep them. You know, I've got. I don't know, I've got a half decent file. I mean, I do take care of them. I'm not really anal about it. Like some people, like classical players, will file them every 5 minutes. They'll be out there.
James Taylor's got a routine that he does.
Does he? Yeah.
Yeah, he uses synthetic nails as well, but he's very
Oh
fastidious
yeah.
about his.
I mean, I've had to do that on occasion if I broke them. My nails though they're super strong. I hate to say it, but they're hard as nails.
You're lucky. You're lucky.
I know.
Yeah,
They're just
mine are
naturally like
not.
that. And I remember when I first started playing, it took me a really long time to balance the attack of the thumb pick with this. So when I see my version of alternate picking would be this. Of course, I
Right.
do other things if I want to use other string groups and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So what would happen with me is the thumb pick would almost override the sound of the first finger. So now I'm
Right.
able to balance them out so they sound.
Yeah.
See,
So if
that
I,
sounds very even, right? So that's like thumb, downstroke,
yeah,
upstroke with the.
what I'm doing there is just flesh, is all flesh. But
Right.
you're getting that beautiful, you know, that ring.
Yeah.
That, you
Well,
know,
see, I want every single. When I do this,
yeah.
I want every single note to. I want to be able to control every note. You know, if I could do
Yeah.
this, you know. So I could shade if I wanted to. I could actually shade any note I wanted
You know,
dynamically anyway.
I mess with that a lot enough to appreciate what you're doing. I'm not good
It's
at
hard,
it.
man. It's really hard.
It is
I mean,
so
I could get so
hard
quiet
to
with
do.
my fingers.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just completely controlling the dynamics.
Yeah, I could make it almost silent. Like
That's incredible.
you probably can't even hear that, you know.
Well, I can hear it, but just enough so that we know it's there. You know,
Yeah.
the dynamic
So
range
that
is so awesome.
I mean I've spent years working on that, and that's something that I don't hear a lot of. I mean, I'm not blowing my own horn here because what I mean is though I don't hear that kind of subtle playing in too many guitar players, and
No.
that's something that I got from listening to Lenny Bro.
Right, sure.
It was beautiful, and Ed. Those two, in my mind, those are the two guys that really were both very influential. And Lenny, of course, was very influenced by Bill Evans. I got to Bill Evans through Lenny. You know, I heard Lenny and went, wow, this guy sounds like a piano player. And then I found out who Lenny wanted to emulate himself after. And then I heard Bill Evans and I went, I can certainly hear I can appreciate the lineage.
Yeah.
The correlation between
I mean, there's only a few musicians that I listen to on a very regular basis, and one of them is Miles.
Yeah.
And the other one is Bill Evans, and I particularly
Bill is my
but I particularly like Bill and Tony when they did that duet record.
Oh man, you know, like when they go like.
Oh yeah.
And Bill goes something like this. He goes.
Yeah.
He plays that A flat diminished chord, and then you know
and
then he goes.
That record is so. Yeah.
Oh, it's killing, yeah.
Well, I'm not going to get my guitar out, but there's the Waltz for Debbie. I mean, everybody knows that he recorded that tune in F, but not on that recording. On that recording.
Yeah, actually, I never. Yeah, what key is it on that recording?
E flat.
Sorry, E flat.
E flat, yeah.
Oh, B flat. Okay.
E elephant flat. E flat.
Okay, yeah.
Which is a little lower. Which makes it a lot different when you're going to improvise on it. For me, you know, maybe not for you, but
Yeah.
for me, it's a lot
You know
different.
what would be a great tune on the guitar though to play that in? A or D. If you went like,
Well, the reason I do it in E flat is the same reason Tony did it in E flat, is I can't sing it in those keys. So I sing it, and I just kind
oh,
of
I see.
I
Okay.
picked it up from, and that's why I spent the time.
Yeah.
But if you play an F, you've got all the guitar, you got the A minor, the D's, the G minor, you got all the stuff that's
Yeah, I
more
like, yeah,
known.
finding the ultimate key and then yeah, trying, like I say, trying things in different keys will also yield different results vis-a-vis open string voicings.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
for sure.
so that really, and then you could modulate too. There's nothing to say that you have got to stay in the same key. Bill did that all the time. He would just switch keys up.
It's interesting. Your playing is. I'm glad you made this record. It's about, I mean, 25 years is too long. Don't do that again.
Well, I can't because in another
I know.
25 years
I know.
I'll be 92.
You might be able to. You might be able to.
You know what,
There's
man?
Pablo
Yeah,
Casals at 90 years old,
yeah.
Maestro. Why are you
Well,
playing?
listen, if I still have my marbles, I've got a really good memory for tunes. I know lots of tunes, and I seem to
Right.
remember ones even that I haven't played in a long time. But my ultimate, for me, the ultimate thrill would be to be, in my very advanced years. Number
Hmm.
one, have my health, have my faculties, and be able
Right.
to pick up a guitar without a hand that sort of looks like this from being arthritic,
Just keep
and
playing.
play.
Yeah.
I mean, that would to me would be that would be like winning the lottery.
Have you always played with the thumb pick? Was that something that I
No,
mean,
no, I was a typical teenage rock and roll guitar player, and around 1980, I'd say around 1982-ish,
hmm.
I decided I hit a brick wall. I'm left-handed, but I play right-handed,
Oh,
and
okay.
I don't know if that was a reason for it. I sort of hit a technical wall. You know how people like Pat Martino and John McLaughlin and Larry Coryell, they've got like Uber chops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I never did. Not again, not that it's not about that anyway. For sure. Let me look at what Jim Hall did. Jim Hall had beautiful chops, but they were not chops like sort of Pat Martino hard rock
No, no,
chops. So,
you lean much more to the more Jim Hall school than the Pat
oh,
Martino
for
school.
sure. Oh, yeah,
But
without a
I will
doubt.
say
I
this:
don't.
when you're playing with Oscar, and
Yeah.
that when you're taking your solo, that
Yeah.
was the closest thing I've heard you to a Pat Martino kind of solo.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? When I played with Oscar, some of the tunes, you dug in more. It was that
Yeah,
kind of playing, right? I mean,
right,
and if I'm more than capable of doing that. I choose not to do that. No, but I choose not to do that all the time. And my,
right,
my point is, further to that, everybody has got different aspects sort of to their musical personality, So in other words, we don't necessarily always approach playing something, one way necessarily. So in other words, like, when I was 16,
I do that
all
at
that,
70.
yeah, well, I know whatever, but I mean, I lifted a whole bunch of Eric Clapton stuff, and I did a
Yeah,
pretty good, like, half-baked impersonation. But then,
sure.
as I got other influences in, that sort of fell by the wayside. But if I was playing a blues with Oscar, I might not do something like that, but it would be more,
Sure.
so I would start approaching more in that territory, which he dug, but. And then the next tune, we might play this beautiful tune called "The Gentle Waltz," or a tune dedicated to Joe Pass, or I think Ella Fitzgerald, called
Hmm.
"She Is Gone" or something. So we played a variety of tunes that were at different dynamic and energy ranges. So I was called upon to play, you know, I had to sort of tailor my playing to what was happening around me.
Hmm.
So I can certainly play that way if I want. It's just not necessarily something that I want to do all the time. So.
Today, what I'm hearing you playing is much more the Bill Evans lyrical approach, if you will. I don't have a better
Oh,
word for
totally.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I'm
And that,
much more influenced by
yeah.
pianists now. And on the new CD, I was really, I mean, I heard elements here and there, where that thing I've been working on for years. Like I said, to go like,
I love that.
all of a sudden the comping just seems to trail out.
I really hope that people that are watching this or will be watching this can really appreciate what we're talking about here with the dynamics within the voicings and all of that. That is so hard to do, and nobody talks about it. And you've done a hell of a job with it. I mean, it sounds great.
Oh well, thanks. Well, like I said, it's been a labor of love, and it's been a
Yeah.
long, it's been a long journey, and the journey continues. I mean, like I said, that thing I tried to do, I mean, I spent half an hour on that, just on that two bars.
I,
Like many, many years ago when I first started listening to piano players and realized, how are they getting that sound? Oh, I know how, because they're using a lot of close voicings. Of course, they
right.
open things up too, but you get that depth and that beauty in the close voicings.
Do you have any charts on any of this stuff
Of which stuff?
of your new tunes, of the tunes on the record? Are
Oh,
there
I've
any,
got lead sheets for them. Yeah.
do you have voicings on there, or is it?
No, they're just like lead sheets. But
One of the things that's interesting to me is why do you? I'm going to switch gears on you. Then we'll
yeah,
continue
yeah,
a little bit because this is
yeah.
fascinating. I mean, you're a guy that's been places I only wish I could have been. Why do you think Oscar always played with guitar players? I asked some other people. I mean, what was it? His fascination with guitar players? It's so unusual, especially with
That's a very good. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, his original trio actually was modeled after the Nat Cole trio.
well,
Like
that
Nat
makes
King Cole, right? Right.
yeah.
So I'm trying to remember Nat King Cole's first guitar player.
If you wouldn't have asked me, I would have told you. I could look it up, but yeah, I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
But anyway, yeah. So it was guitar and bass. See, it
Guitar,
wasn't
bass, and
bass
piano.
drums. Yeah, it wasn't bass drums. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't your
Okay.
standard piano trio. And Oscar was a huge fan of Nat Cole, and vice versa. And I don't know if you knew this, but when Oscar was much younger, he could sing exactly like Nat Cole.
Well, see,
I heard a recording of him singing "Sweet Lorraine," an old standard.
yeah.
He sounded exact. He sounded. I swear, like if you had, if you didn't see the video, I think it was just an audio anyway. But if you heard it, you'd say, "Well, that's Nat Cole." And then if you listen again, you'd hear it's slightly different. Well, it's not Nat Cole, but man, it's someone who's like cloned from him, and in a very musical way, not just like the phrasing. Also, Oscar had ridiculous perfect pitch. So did Nat Cole. So Oscar was not, and Oscar had this real gift for being able to imitate different styles of piano playing. He did this thing on the Dick Cavett show. It's on YouTube. He was a guest, and he gave Dick Cavett a piano lesson.
I saw that. I've seen that.
You remember that when he talked about the stride thing, and he talked
Yep.
about Errol
Yep.
Garner, and he talked about
I watched that more than once.
so he emulated. Not only did he play the notes, but he emulated the feeling and the time feel and the phrasing. So Oscar could take that to a whole other a whole deeper level and emulate the timbre of Nat Cole. It wasn't just phrasing like Nat Cole.
Right. It's the whole tonality of it.
And he dug the guitar thing. And then when he decided to add the drums in, also the other cool thing is the guitar. In that older style, it's got the if you go it's got that really super percussive and rhythmic thing that it would almost sound like I remember on one tune he would say to me he'd say play shout chords or something like that, and I'd go like
yeah, you can hear it for sure. Oh, that's lovely.
And the other thing too is when I joined his band, I mean, I played with him in the '80s. He produced a record for me in 1980, and then I did a little bit of playing with him in and around that time. And then I ran into him years later when he was the chancellor at this university that I teach at. Then he had a stroke, so he stepped down from that. Then and there was like a going away banquet or party for him. And because I was York faculty, I was hired to play. So we knew each other for many years before. So he came. He was in a wheelchair because he had a stroke, he came over. You know, he wheeled himself over. We were talking. He said, "Oh," I said, "it's good to see you." You know, and then he just said, "What are you doing this summer?" I went, "Nothing." He says, "Do you want to come to Europe with me?" I went, "Yeah." And then he said, "I'll have my secretary call you." And I thought he was just being nice. But 2 or 3 weeks later, his then secretary, Doreen, called
Wow.
me up, gave me a list of these 6 concerts we were going to play all through Europe. One of them Munich,
What
Vienna,
year was that? Was that was in the 90s?
94. Yeah, I played
Yeah,
with them
94,
94,
96.
94 to 96, three
Yeah.
years, and then we did that live in Paris album. Then we did the
Yeah.
studio album in Toronto with Ray
Was
Brown
he
and
in a
Clark
wheelchair
Terry.
at that time? Was he
He
still?
was, yeah, yeah. Also, the other thing was his knees weren't very good. Like his knees were in rough shape, you know, and he was pretty overweight. So it was just safer for him to kind of be to have some mobility that way.
How
You know
do you
what? We'd
imagine?
walk out and play. We'd do a little like kind of and he'd do like falling in love with love, or I'll
Yeah.
never be in, or one some sort of standard tune or something. And so Martin Drew would go out, the drummer, and Martin would start playing on the brushes, and he'd just sit there by himself going. And then Niels would walk out and play the bass, and then I'd walk out, and then I'd go, whatever I do, I play,
Yeah.
and then Oscar would come out, and then all of a sudden everybody got up, and it was like Elvis came back to Graceland. He Elvis had been reborn, and people happened to be at Graceland when he rose up from the dead, and everybody kind of went up, and
Oh,
he
that,
got the wave. Everybody did the wave.
so let's talk about your equipment for just a second, if you don't mind. I normally don't
No,
talk
not at all.
a lot about gear, but
I don't either.
tell me about that guitar that you're playing. Just give us a second of that.
It's like, you know what it's like, a poor man's Strat, right? It's got the three pickups. Those are just cool rails. They're just Seymour Duncan standard cool rails. It's got stainless steel frets. I'll tell you a very short funny story. This is my second. This one is the sister of my main guitar, which is pretty much identical to this.
Right. It's a little redder than that one, though.
Well, this one is made. The other one is the other one I think is 1983, and this is 1984. The other one, the one I've got upstairs, is the one I played with Oscar. That's the one we went all around the world with. And
Right.
I've had that guitar for about 35 years.
Pickups the same, cool rails on both of them.
Yeah, yeah. Like I had this one when I got this. I taught a student online, and in the middle of the lesson, you know what he did? He went like this. This is hilarious. Yeah. So I'm giving him a lesson, and all of a sudden he goes like this. He goes like, "Hey, guess what? Take a look at this." And he goes like this. And I went, "Hey, that's my guitar." I said, "Where did you get that?" He said, "I found it on like Reverb or Kijiji, one of the sites, right?"
Yeah.
So I asked him, I said, "Would you like to sell it?" He said, "Well,
Wow.
maybe." So I'll tell you why, man. Like my other guitar, I love it so much, and if anything ever happened to it, I mean, I could replace it with something. That to me, that guitar it's me. It's my guitar. I walked in, I saw it there. I didn't know anything about Ibanez guitars. I picked it up. The neck felt great, and I said, "How much is that?" They said, "It's $235 second hand." I went, "I'll take it." And then I got the pickups. I put EMGs in it, and then I got tired of EMGs, and I got cool rails put in, stainless steel frets, a mid-range boost that I use rarely. It's usually
Hmm.
just pickups, and that's it. Then when I got this newer one, I had this great luthier in Toronto named Doug Harrison, who
Hmm.
builds amazing guitars. He's also a great repairman. I said, "Doug, I want you to make this guitar just like my Ibanez, the other
Right.
Ibanez that you've been working on all these years." So we'll put in the Demeter mid, cool rails. We'll put on the new frets. We'll set it up, same string gauge. And I went, "This is great, perfect." I've got one downstairs, one upstairs, and I just leave them out, and I just go up and down and pick up the guitar, and it's great.
So, what gauge strings are you using?
13 to 56 with a 22 plain G.
So
So
that's
they're
pretty,
fairly hefty,
yeah, pretty
you know.
serious set of strings. Yeah. So
But that's how, and when you play high,
yeah.
the strings don't crap out. If you played like
No, I
Well, it's
understand.
unplugged now, but but yeah, if you played something really high and then you did like I call them Lenny Bro chords, where you play
Yeah,
like a standard voicing you play down here, you move it up on the lower string, and
sure.
so.
And then, what amp are you using?
Well, I'm definitely not a gear hound. I've got a really old, like for gigs where I don't have to worry about anything being recorded or anything. I have
Right.
a really old, funky orange Cube 60
Oh,
that looks like it fell out of a car at 60 miles
old,
an hour.
old and funky is cool. I like old and
Yeah,
funky.
yeah,
I'm kind
but
of
it's
old and
got
funky.
it's got a fair bit of headroom, and so I use that, and I've got a even older Yamaha G50 112. I've had that for like about more than 40 years or more.
Well, I can tell you when they came out in the 80s. I think is when that because I had the 212. I had the G212.
Right.
And you know who else plays one of those or played one of those for a long, long time is Mike Stern of 112.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Is that
Yeah,
great?
yeah. That's yeah.
As a matter of fact, that album, that the song, this song is new. I'm using the Yamaha amp.
It's.
You know?
I had one for a long time, and it was
Yeah, they're great. They're
yeah. They had a
powerful.
lot of
They're quite clean.
very clean, a lot of
Yeah,
features, good tone
yeah,
control back in the day.
yeah,
Yeah, that was an interesting series of amps that they had. It was very
yeah.
cool.
And it had one repair in 40 years.
No, it's
So,
we could talk a long time about gear,
but
but
that's it. I mean, and I've got a
yeah.
lunch. You're hearing my guitar through a little lunchbox on the floor, and I don't use pedals, and I don't for recording. I might have them put on a drop of reverb after the fact. I don't even use reverb when I play. It's just guitar into the amp.
And you can hear that in the attack when I hear the envelope of the notes of when you're
Right.
playing. I can tell that it's dry and it's so full of freaking tone, and that's
Well, like I said, I've been working on it for a long
yeah,
time, but I
yeah,
think
no, but
reverb gets in the way. It clouds the issue for me, anyway.
it just
So,
everybody's got their thing, their technique,
yeah.
and some guys can't play without it. Some guys don't want to hear it. Some guys want a delay. Some guys have a pre-delay. For example, Robin Ford, he uses a little, I think it's a single digit millisecond pre-delay. I am going to let you run because I'm going to run out
Yep.
of interesting things to say, and I'd rather have you want to talk to me again than get bored with me. So I'm going
Oh man,
to.
I'll talk to you anytime. It's my pleasure.
It's
It's been
fun.
my
It's
pleasure.
really fun. I got to tell you, this has been one of the most interesting interviews I've done, and I've done a bunch of them. I feel what you're doing. I really do. And a lot of what you're
Well,
doing is stuff I aspire to do. I'm so happy that you put this record out, and I really mean it. You shouldn't wait so long because what you're
well,
doing,
thanks.
I'm gonna brag on you a little bit for you. What you're doing is unusual to say the least, if not unique, in the world of guitar, and it's
Oh,
definitely a
well,
step that needs to be talked about, and people need to have examples of it going forward. That's your legacy, man. I mean, when you spend a half hour, an hour, or 2 hours, or 3 hours coming up with these voicings, I mean, that's your legacy. That you got to let the next generation know what the hell's up and give them something to build on. Let them stand on.
mm,
I mean, we stand on shoulders of giants. You're a giant, man. I'll
oh.
be honest with you. I had a kind of an idea, but I had no idea of the depth of what you were getting yourself into, and that's incredible. I'm just
Well,
blown
I
away.
didn't either when I picked up a guitar many years ago. It's all UB Blake had a line. He said, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have
Yeah, to
taken
take
better
better
care of
care of
myself.
myself.
Yeah,
Uh,
my line or a serious player's line would be, if I knew it was going to be this hard, I don't know if I would have picked up a guitar all those years.
I hear you,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate it.
Okay, I'll send
Jazz
you that
Guitar
chart
Today.
too.
Please
Yeah,
do. We'll
yeah.
be in touch. Jazz Guitar Today signing off with Lorne Lofsky in Toronto,
Okay,
Canada. Thank you,
okay.
sir.
Thanks so much, man. Okay,
Appreciate
take
it.
care.
Thank you,
All the
buddy.
best. Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.